A 13-year-old boy named Pan, without parents, was adopted by his aunt. Unexpectedly, his aunt made him live in a doghouse.
当时我们去问的时候，他说他家没有地方睡，而且能让他睡，他已经感到很满足。
Pan, with a clear gaze and a smiling face, presents an optimistic appearance that belies the hardships he has endured since childhood. The dilapidated thatched hut in front of us is constructed with pieces of cloth, wooden sticks, and straw. It provides no shelter from the wind or rain. Yet, Pan has been living here from summer to deep autumn, and he will endure the coming winter in this humble abode. The current season is quite cold. Journalists are clad in sweaters and coats, but Pan is only wearing thin clothes and slippers. Even his pants have a large hole, allowing the cold wind to penetrate his legs. According to reporters, the first time they found this child in the thatched hut, he wore a panicked and fearful expression. Faced with inquiries from strangers, Pan huddled in the corner, refusing to answer any questions. As per the villagers, Pan is still attending school, and his aunt lives next to the dilapidated thatched hut in an imposing small building, creating a stark contrast. Villagers can't help but sigh when talking about Pan. Despite being only 13 years old, this unfortunate boy has experienced unimaginable hardships. His father passed away due to a heart attack when he was less than a year old, and later, his mother left him for someone else. Pan, not yet 2 years old, was left in the care of his grandparents. However, misfortune struck again. After a few years, Pan and his grandmother encountered an accident while waiting for a vehicle. An out-of-control truck rushed towards them, and his grandmother was fatally hit before his eyes. Young Pan also suffered severe injuries, with his right leg and right arm both broken. Although the court ruled that the driver should compensate Pan's family with 50,000 yuan, the driver disappeared without paying. Eventually, compassionate villagers pooled money to cover Pan's medical expenses. Today, the horrifying scars from that accident still remain on Pan's body, and the incident took away his beloved grandmother, leaving an indelible shadow on his young life. What adds to Pan's despair is that not even a year later, his grandfather, his last caregiver, passed away. From that day forward, Pan, who was not yet 10 years old, became a complete orphan with no one to look after him. It seems like fate has heaped all the misfortunes onto this poor child. Without the protection of his grandparents, Pan often sits alone outside, going through moments of loneliness. When hungry, he scavenges for food in the garbage heap, and occasionally, kind neighbors offer him a bowl of warm rice. Despite this, he often goes without proper meals, and his clothes are tattered. Even though he can attend school for free, nobody knows the extent of the sorrow and trauma this mostly silent child is carrying in his heart. Pan often sits on the field path, reading books alone. When asked about his greatest wish, Pan's words make the reporters unable to hold back tears. To address the situation of Pan being left unattended, the reporter first located Pan's living grandparents and inquired about Pan's mother. Unexpectedly, the grandparents coldly stated that Pan's mother had started a new family and couldn't come back to take care of Pan. Upon hearing the resolute rejection from the grandparents, Pan's initially cheerful face instantly dimmed. He silently squatted outside the door alone, and later went to the place where his grandparents had lived before, now abandoned and turned into a warehouse. Whenever he missed his grandparents, he would spend some time there. Since the maternal side could not be relied upon, the reporter wondered if there were any relatives on Pan's father's side willing to care for him. Soon, it was learned that Pan's aunt had been relatively kind to him. After the successive deaths of Pan's grandparents, he had lived with his aunt for a while. However, last January, he was suddenly taken away by his aunt. When asked about this, the aunt's husband couldn't help sighing, seemingly reluctant to answer. Later, the reporter found out that it was all related to money. After Pan's parents passed away, the community had applied for welfare for their family, providing 200 yuan per month. After the grandparents passed away, this money naturally fell on Pan, but according to legal regulations, only the guardian of Pan could claim this money. So, the aunt had set her sights on this money. Although Pan had lived with his aunt for a while, her husband claimed they hadn't seen a penny of the welfare. The aunt's husband, an honest man, didn't want people to think they were taking care of the child for the money. When the aunt came to take Pan away, he handed the child over directly to avoid suspicion. Besides, the conditions at the aunt's house were indeed better, and he thought the child would have a better life there. However, to his surprise, after going to the aunt's house, not only did Pan not have a good life, but his quality of life plummeted. Pan was not even given a glimpse of the second-floor apartment of the aunt's house. Instead, he was placed in a doghouse. What was even more unexpected for the reporter was that when asked about this, Pan couldn't help but speak in defense of his aunt. He mentioned that the house had been rented out to others, and he joked that he was satisfied with having a place to sleep, even if it was outside. Seeing the child's smiling face, the reporter felt heartbroken. Perhaps having endured so much hardship before, living in a doghouse and eating rice with pickled vegetables seemed like nothing to Pan. To further understand the situation, the reporter quickly found Pan's aunt. Unexpectedly, when the topic of the 200 yuan welfare came up, the aunt suddenly looked innocent, claiming to be wronged. Due to Pan's young age and having forgotten the password, even if there was money in the account, they couldn't withdraw a single cent now. The only solution was to wait until Pan reached adulthood to change the password and access the money. This also explained why Pan's aunt treated him poorly. Not only did she gain nothing, but she also brought back a burden, making her unhappy. To ensure that Pan could grow up in a healthy environment, the reporter approached the village committee, hoping that other relatives of Pan would be willing to care for him. However, everyone focused on complaining about their own difficulties, and after discussions, no consensus was reached. Pan was tossed around like a ball by indifferent relatives, and no one wanted to take care of this poor child. As Pan had previously mentioned enjoying staying at his aunt's house the most, the community workers shifted their focus to Pan's aunt and uncle. However, the aunt's husband's attitude suddenly changed. Perhaps due to previous suspicions from the aunt, he couldn't let go of that resentment. Fortunately, after over an hour of patient persuasion by the community workers, the aunt's husband finally agreed to adopt Pan. Only when sitting next to his aunt's husband did Pan's face finally light up with a smile again. He finally had a home once more.